Welcome to Stateside Street, a podcast where two Americans discuss all things British soaps. I'm Shanika.
I'm Amelia.
We are here and privileged to sit down with a legend in the industry with 30 years of experience. She has developed some of your favorite characters like Pat Phelan, and she's written some iconic lines. And my favorite line, "You're a dinosaur, Frank," and we all know what happened to them. Please welcome the legend, award-winning writer, Jan McVerry, to the podcast. Hello, Jan. How are you?
Hello, I'm really pleased to be here. I'm
Yeah.
still quite amazed that the two Americans are so interested in what we do, and it's brilliant.
Mm, yeah. Thank you
And
for
also, the
being.
offer still stands if you need an American
Yeah.
on at any point.
I will
Yes.
mention it to Jenny Radcliffe, our amazing casting director.
Yes. Even
Are
if
you
it's
ready to
just,
jump on a flight at any moment?
but listen, if I can cover the flight, I'll be there in a heartbeat.
All right, Jen, you tell us a bit about your time in the industry, how you went from storyliner to a scriptwriter on staff.
I was really lucky. I got my first job in telly in my early 20s at a show called Brookside, which is very hot topic at the moment because they've just brought the show back after being off air for decades, just for a special crossover with Hollyoaks. Um, and because I'm from Liverpool in the north of England, only 30 miles down the road from where they filmed Corrie for forever. But, it's still quite a big gulf between the two cities. And Brookside was just a great jumping off point for so many people. We've had people who've gone on to do have amazing careers. I would say probably the most successful, Terry McDonough, who was one of our directors years ago, who's directed Never Call Saul and well a gazillion brilliant things. He's amazing. He's got the Iris Project on Sky at the moment. But we were so grateful because if you were coming from a working class background with no connections with the media at all, to have Brookside there on your doorstep and to be able to get a foot in the door was fantastic. So I worked there for maybe a year or two, and then someone who had worked at Brookside, who was now working at Granada, invited me across to work. But I was working on very, very cheap um, afternoon soaps that were made for about 2p an episode, but with the most amazing writers and creators. So Kay Mellor, Paul Abbott, Frank Cottrell Boyce, Sally Wainwright, Russell T Davis. I mean, it was a golden period for Granada. And we were all, sort of making our learning on the job, making mistakes on the job. But because they were afternoon shows, there wasn't as much scrutiny as there is now. So you could really find your feet and develop your voice. And talking about Sally, for instance, who's now absolutely, I would say, our major, one of our major screenwriters, not just in the UK but internationally. When she first started with us on Corrie, I was a storyliner at the time, and she was completely petrified. The kind of makeup and the gender balance in the room was really out of kilter. There were lots of older, very imposing white men ruling the roost and brilliant creative minds, but it's a very different feel to the way things are now. And it was much more a baptism of fire in those days that you either, sank or swam. And I remember Sally really struggled in the early years because she had brilliant ideas. Her scripts were amazing and very bold, but she just found it very difficult to kind of like get her voice heard in the room.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
and so I think there was a lot of that back in the early days. So I moved over to work there as a storyliner, and again at the time, I was the only woman on the storylining team, and there was only one woman on the script writing team at the time, and they said to me, "Don't speak for the first 3 months." Which, and I'd come from Brookside, in Liverpool, which is a very, politically vibrant and outspoken, bit of an outsider city. And, it's just not our way. In Brookside, it was very, very democratic, and Phil Redmond would listen to, the women from the canteen who were bringing our like break time
Yeah.
snacks in, if they had an opinion on a story, Phil would listen. And so it was quite a shock to me to go to Granada where things were much more old school
Mm-hmm.
and kind of set in stone and more hierarchical. Um, and so we came to our first story conference, and I didn't keep my mouth shut because I wanted to suggest a tweak on a story, and again these days our storyliners are as likely to pitch stories or to comment on a storyline as anyone else in the room. But
Mm-hmm.
then it was seen as quite shocking, and but the story tweak that I suggested was a good one, and we ended up using it, and it gave us material that we were able to then use and bring back like 6 months down the line. So, it's just very different environments. But and it is a different job. I think a lot of people don't understand, and you may have talked about this with other writers, but the job is very different from the actual script writing. It's much more concerned with, I suppose, the structural skeleton of the stories. And it's a really technical job because, especially these days, where you have to hit a hook for the episode here and work out which actors you've got available and which sets you've got available. And these days, we do fewer scenes outside on location because just for budgetary reasons. And we've now got this amazing big set up in Trafford Ward. We've got our own police station, we've got our own hospital, we've got schools and all that kind of thing. So yeah, we try and sort of do a lot more stuff in house than we would have done in the past. But yeah, the job is just very, very technical, but it's also a mastercraft in storytelling because you have to learn, how to pace things, and so yeah,
Especially in long form. This is long form storytelling, so pacing
yeah.
is absolute king, you know. What sort of change in your style and tone as a writer?
I suppose maybe I'm a bit more measured now, or I think I was
Mm.
a bit more of a sort of hothead when I first started, and I remember Frank Cotterboyce really laughed at me for this, although I think he was quite fond of it at the time. But because I suppose the writing team at the time was very established and has had that good career for many years and were mostly sort of quite established middle class people with the lives that go with that. And
Mm.
I was coming in like I'd not that long ago been a student, and I was living in a rubbish flat and didn't have a lot of money, and I remember expounding at one conference, oh, working class people don't drink champagne. And Frank always laughed at me for that. And of course, now I'm very happy drinking champagne.
Yeah.
But it's just, I suppose, you come at it with from different points of view, really. and
Mhm.
and maybe at that young age, I think I was trying to bring a lot more kind of social realist political
Yeah.
stories, and we do still try and do that. And I do like particularly to work on a story that you can feel someone out there might have had their life changed by this.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm a bit more able to see different points of view now, or
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
hard to say really.
I can see that. I mean, you know, when you're young, you want your voice heard, and now you've experienced things, you've seen things a bit different, so you can kind of bring that to the table. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so you've worked on Emmerdale, Brookside. I know off camera we kind of talked about the Brookside crossover, which we'll see a lot more of it tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, are you excited for the Emmerdale and Coronation Street crossover?
I am really, really excited. And I'm excited to see how much genuine interest there is in it.
Hmm.
Um, I'm thrilled with who they've chosen to
Hmm.
write the episodes. I'm guessing you know that by now. Do you know it's Lloyd
Owen? Yeah,
Cox?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a secret. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And aside from the fact that he is a really brilliant and I think he's a very filmic writer. He has a
Mm-hmm.
real broad scope and he's very bold in his ideas.
Hmm.
But the fact that he has worked on both of those shows, and it's not that long since he worked, I'm trying to think, maybe about 8 or 9 years since he worked on Emmerdale. Kate Oates brought him across. But I think he's still got a lot of friends over there, and he's still very much in touch with the stories and the characters. So he was the perfect choice. I'm really thrilled because I think I would have felt very strangely about it if they'd chosen an Emmerdale writer to do it. I know that's
Hmm.
really unfair
No, no,
because it should
okay.
be 50-50, but I would have thought, how dare you write our characters? These are our babies, you know.
Hmm.
So I am really thrilled, and I'll have to be so careful what I say. I have read the
Yeah.
script, and
Hmm.
it is just superb. And there's some beautiful little Easter eggs in there,
Oh, I
and yeah,
love
it's
that.
just a treat. It really
Oh,
is.
I can't wait. I love those moments in soaps where you can take different characters and put them in different situations and see how they react. Crossovers obviously are like the major thing, but with
Yeah.
Eva coming back, I'm really happy about that.
Yes,
So
that's this
happy.
time next week, I think, or is it
Yes.
27th?
Yeah.
And I have cheated and I've watched the first episode. We can
Ooh.
sometimes have access to episodes in advance
Hmm.
on a closed system at work, and it's great. They're great, and they feel such a modern family.
Mm.
It's a blended family. It's a
Hmm.
racially blended family and blended marriages,
Yeah.
and it just it just feels so contemporary and really good fun. And
Hmm.
I'm really interested in Catherine's performance, Cat Tilsley. I mean, she is
Yeah.
like fantastic anyway.
Yeah.
And I loved her as old Eva. This new Eva has got all of those qualities, but I feel like there's a little bit more kind of gravitas in there
Oh, that's
that
interesting.
she's obviously thought really hard, and they've obviously discussed.
Yeah.
She's been away a long time. A lot's happened to her in the interim. Here she is with this new family, and how's that happened? And it just feels she's more of a heavyweight, really, coming back.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
Weatherfield is completely different now. I mean, Aiden's not here.
yeah,
You know, goodness, Toya, the whole thing was Toya, Nick, and Leanne. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see how
Carla's
she
with a
navigates that
woman now.
space.
yeah,
That
I know,
too,
yeah,
exactly. A copper at
Oh, that's what
that.
I'm waiting for.
yeah,
Yeah.
Eva and Carla scenes. That's what
Mm.
we're waiting on.
Yeah.
yes,
I'm
yeah.
so excited that Eva's back. One of our first episodes with me and Shanika was a Q&A, and someone said, "What's one character you'd like to see come back?" And I said Eva, and then it got announced. I was like, I'm a genius.
You need to take credit for that. I'm going to start rumors that it was you.
It was.
you
Oh my gosh, you and Debbie have now
you
said the
sowed the
same thing.
seeds.
Amelia did it.
Yeah, no, she is. Yeah, and she's an absolute delight to work with. Like such a professional, always word perfect, always, and very, just really great. In her own time as well. She does a lot of good stuff for people, and yeah,
Mm.
no, she's fab.
For a basis, a lot of our fans are Swarla fans, so Lisa and Carla. How do you write for Lisa and Carla? How do you decide what you want them to say in a scene together?
Well, there's a couple of different things at play. I mean, we know usually what our kind of narrative arc's going to be because
Mhm.
we know where the story needs to go. Um, I think Carla, we've known her for so long.
Mhm.
She is one of those characters, and I don't want to say she writes herself because that sounds like there's no craft in the job at all. But she is so well defined and so brilliantly portrayed by Ali King that you almost know what she's going to say, and then it's just a matter of trying to make that more sparky or more interesting or more truthful. I mean, that's one of the joys of the character. She absolutely tells it as it is, and you absolutely know where you stand with her. And Vicky, I feel so proud of what. Sorry, Vicky Myers. I feel so proud of how Corrie has grown that character
Mhm.
because she really did come in as very much a bit part, and then it was like, whoa, she was good, and bring her back, and then you're thinking, how credible is this? We can't only have one copper at the station and all of that, and then when the idea came to move her more centre stage, it was so exciting for us to do it, and there were big debates of how we tell that story. Do we do it as a coming out story? And we really didn't want to do a cut. We just wanted
Mhm.
it to be here's this amazing person, and Carla falls in love with this woman, with this person, and they are two like souls that are perfectly in tune. And so yeah, and I'm really, really proud of what we've done. I've got to say, Vicky Myers works so hard, like
Mm,
so hard. I mean, obviously, so does Ali, but I think to come into such a high profile role, I just know you see the way she marks the best scripts, the way she gets, and you see it in the performance, all those emotional beats. She
mhm,
hits everything, and she's word perfect. And yeah, it's just brilliant.
mm.
Yeah, just
Sorry, that is
the
that a
Connor
very
Swain.
long-winded answer there, Amelia? Sorry, I don't even
No,
know
no,
if I've
it's
answered
perfect.
that properly.
But no, we love the Connor Swains. We love that little family that they've built, and just the writing for that whole little family, especially whenever you add in Betsy and like
Mm.
Carla's saying something quippy, and then Betsy's saying something quippy, and then
Yeah,
Lisa's just there with her head in her hands, like, "Oh, this is." It's like that saying. It's like, whose circus is going on over there? Oh wait, that's my circus.
yeah,
That's the Connor Swains, and we love
yeah.
it.
I mean,
But
the cast in there. Well, we were so lucky. Sydney, she just, she just brightens up the screen, doesn't she? And she's got
Mm.
this really, for
she's the
someone so
sweetest. We
young,
love her.
Yeah.
she's so, there's a maturity to that
Mhm.
performance, the way she's able to throw away the lines. And that's what you want. She sounds so natural and also, so impulsive and such good fun. And I love those triangle scenes,
Mhm.
especially um, when the two naughty ones gang up on Lisa, and it just feels so natural, and you can feel the love and the respect that the characters have for each other as well. And
It has
yeah,
to be a blast to write for them. It has to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
I love how you guys you really created a really great dynamic between all of them.
the other interesting thing about it is like quite often if we're going to bring in someone who's going to be a big part, we have a bio worked out for them. We think, where did they come from? Where were they before? And she, we were building that on the job and sort of creating it as we were going along. So it was scary because we could have done anything, but it was also really exciting because the possibilities were endless. It can be just such a mixture, and sometimes it's like a kind of ping pong thing that you are responding to what you've seen. So the Pat Phelan thing is really interesting because I invented that character, but not quite in the form that he eventually ended up. So I was having a lot of work done on my house, and we had a builder who was full of great stories, like of oh, this person ripped me off, that person ripped me off, because the building game is notorious for having the cowboy builders who will do a job and then they disappear off and they owe people all kinds of money. So we said, oh, well, let's do a story about a cowboy builder. Brought him in, had him working, with Gary Windass, and they luckily cast Connor McIntyre. And some of us had worked with Connor before. There's a brilliant writer on our show, Carmel Morgan, like absolutely fantastic, and she done a BBC Three comedy called Drop Dead Gorgeous, which was set very locally. And Connor had been in that, playing a very, very different character, playing this really lovely, warm, cuddly dad who everybody loved, no side to him at all.
That's
But
exactly like Pat Phelan. What do you
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yes.
But when you spoke to Connor off screen,
Mhm.
he was just this really sparky, interesting, edgy bloke who had a lot of opinions on things. He's an artist and he's a fine artist in real life. And he's had a very interesting life and he's very political and all of that. So when they cast him for Pat Phelan, we were just thrilled and thinking, oh my, we want to hold on to this guy and we know that he's got such a great range. And so we played him in this finite story where he rips Gary off and rips a homeowner off and then runs away. And we thought that was the end of it. And then we had a brilliant scriptwriter called Peter Worley, who was on the show for many, many years. And sadly, he's dead now, but he was a brilliant storyteller. And he was the one who came to conference one day with a pitch that turned Phelan not just from that dodgy wheeler dealer, but into somebody who is really bad and cynical and manipulative. And it like opened a door to a whole other really exciting side to the character. And then we just ate it up. It was like, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that. And it just became this big like snowball really that everybody jumped on board. It was really exciting and Connor responded brilliantly and gave the most amazing performances. And what I loved about what he did was he always found the humanity in there. And I know that sounds crazy because the character was vile and manipulative and so cruel and sadistic. But well, as good actors, and actually, you have to do the same thing as a writer. You have to be able to get under
Yeah.
the skin
Because you
and
don't want to
see
make
from
it
their
all
point
one
of
note,
view.
you know? You
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
have, all sorts of perspective. So, yeah.
yeah. Because the audiences know and hate to be preached to. And I think you can always see, if I'm watching a drama and I can always feel somehow if the writer is taking a view on this character or is condescending to this character or patronizing towards it. You can sort of feel the difference in it. So yeah, I mean he really did get under the skin and yeah, it was brilliant. And I particularly responded to I suppose because some our backgrounds are quite similar. We're both from Liverpool, both grew up in Catholic environments and the big communities like that. And he used some of that to inform the character, and then we were able to bring stuff to it as well. And yeah,
Was
he was
it
an absolute joy.
was it a bit different with developing Kit? Because somebody like Kit, he's original character, but he also has ties to a lot of people already on the canvas, whereas Pat or Lisa or Becky, they don't have these strong ties. So I think it's interesting kind of to see that dynamic
Yeah.
between them.
I mean, what was helpful with him was because we knew he was Bernie's, you have something to react against then. You wouldn't necessarily have wanted him as a character to be brought up in the same environment as Bernie's because we wanted the contrast to play that kind of almost like culture clash, really. His upbringing had been, well, actually, we were talking before about Sally Wainwright's work and
Yeah.
Riot Women.
Hmm.
There's a great adoption story in there.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
actually
Yes.
quite similar, isn't it? So you want just to be able to contrast that very stable, very, sort of probably lower middle class upbringing that he had, and
Hmm.
to contrast that with the chaos that Gemma and Paul were
Yeah.
brought up in, and to see all, not just to be judgmental about that and think he was a winner, they were losers, because actually he doesn't feel like that. I think knows that he missed out on the warmth and being part of a family and all of the delightful warm chaos as well as the sort of trauma.
You had mentioned that every character has like a bio. And so going back to the Connor Swains, and I'm going to ask this before I go into my actual question. So we know Becky's birthday, we know Betsy's, we know Carla's. Do we know Lisa's?
I don't know the answer to that, and I would have to ask. Have you? Do you know we have these two amazing archivists? Do you know anything about our archive department?
No, because
Oh.
we
This
have been dying to know Lisa's birthday.
this is such an interesting job that would not probably exist any. Well, I'm sure it exists on other soaps,
Mhm.
but we have Dominic Curry and Helen Nugent, and they are our archivists, and they are the beating heart of the show because their job is to record everything that
Wow.
happens. And Dom, in particular, has got this amazing kind of sticky, massive brain. He carries so much of that information around with him that I'm sure if I said to him, "What is Lisa Swain's birthday?" he would say, "Oh, it's the 7th of June, blah, blah, blah." He would
Hmm.
just trip. If such a thing exists. Now, it might be that we haven't established one.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I would have to ask.
I asked you about like Carla's one-liners, Betsy's one-liners. How do you come up with those quippy one-liners, and which is your favorite that you've written for Carla or Betsy?
Oh God, I can't remember. I mean, the job is to make it look effortless and spontaneous. You don't see that we are sitting here banging our heads against the desk. We might take a week before we come, or we might have tried four different versions of that quippy one-liner before we actually settle on one that we like. And in the edit process as well, we go through several drafts of a script, and something that we have loved as a quippy one-liner, the editors might go, we don't like it, or we don't get it, or we don't think that's true to the character's voice. And then you've got the battle of like, is that the hill you're going to die on and you're going to defend that line? Or do you have to accept that maybe you were trying to crowbar a great line and it didn't quite fit? And do you kill your darlings? So yeah, it's a difficult one. Oh, I can't think of what my favourite one-liners were. Sorry.
Shanika, you have one of Carla. It's either of Carla or Betsy, and we say it all the time. Which one is it? I can't remember.
Well, no, one
There's
of
one that we
my,
say a lot
I
that we
think,
repeat
well, I'm
so
not
much.
sure if I don't forgot who wrote this line, but it was the Dick Shag line. But Jen, you have some great lines. I mean, you already know my favorite line from you, Jen, just from Kim Tate's line when she's like looking over at Frank. So good, just so good, such a great line.
I cannot believe that you even would have known about that. That's amazing.
Oh, of
I think
course,
that is
yeah.
the campus scene I've ever written in my life. Because there was, I don't know if you remember it, but the moment where he dies, and then she leans over and puts the mirror over his mouth,
Yes.
he's still breathing, and then does her lips. I'm still very proud of
Oh,
that.
it's great. Kim Tate is just such a great character.
Oh,
So
she
yeah,
was iconic. Yeah,
yeah,
just amazing.
I love
yeah.
Kim Tate.
So it looks like we maybe go into audience questions.
Audience question.
Fun audience questions. So, of course, it will probably more than likely be some Swarla things, as
Yeah,
you know.
I was expecting that.
Yeah. Uh, so it says you talked a little bit about original characters, but without spoiling too much, what went into the decision of bringing Becky Swing back?
Um, a lot of arguments.
Oh,
A lot. It was
can imagine.
really contentious around
Oh.
the table. Um, so I can't even remember how long ago it was. It was just kind of tossed in there like a hand grenade, and I can't even remember who it was.
Mm,
It might even have been said as a really jokey thing,
hmm
and I remember um, uh, that we initially kind of laughed off because we felt we had done so much work to establish how genuine it was. And I know I was really against the idea. I was so angry about it. And I was saying, we can't do that. We'll totally break faith with the viewers, and it totally undermines all that we've suffered alongside Lisa, and we've believed her grief, and also I thought, it made the police look, well, very corrupt, or some of them stupid, or I was worried. There was lots of story points that I felt were like holes in the story, and that you know, we, yeah, we couldn't possibly do it. It's ridiculous and outrageous, and one of those kind of jump the shark moments. And then you go away from conference and you start thinking, yeah, but you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. And in the end, because I don't know if you've talked about pitching, we sometimes pitch in groups or with other writers around the table. And I was pitching at the time with Ella Greenhill, who's really good, up and coming, great storyteller. And so we thought, we kind of hate the story, but if we're going to do it, how do we make it the very
hmm
best version of the story we can and solve some of these issues? So in the end, Ella and I became the people to write Becky's return from the grave. I think because we'd been so vociferous in conference, but then come back with pitches that we thought could make it work if we
hmm
were going to do it. And it was a real seesaw. I mean, I would say for quite a few months, we would turn up at story conference thinking, yeah, it's going to happen. And then it'd be, no, we're not going to do it. And then, yes, we're going to do it. So it wasn't set in stone. It absolutely wasn't. But yeah, I think because we talked round and about so much, and those first episodes, or well, you will have seen it as one episode, but we wrote, half an hour each. Um, we spent a lot of work. They were so detailed, and it was in the early drafts. We had a bit more kind of free rein to go off and do what we wanted with them. But because we, the story editors and the script editors had to be so careful about which bits of information we were revealing at what time. It was they actually had a spreadsheet of and what what's the truth and what's a lie, what is Becky telling to get back in favor but didn't really happen, and where does Costello fit in. It was so intricately drawn out. So in the end, the very final drafts of those episodes that Ella and I did ended up being, the notes were very prescriptive, because it was like, we need you to convey this, we need you to get this across. And so there was quite a lot of unpicking and making sure, which is it's difficult. It's almost like climbing into a shirt that's too small for you or something. It just feels uncomfortable, and sometimes you think, this is going to make the dialogue not very natural, I've got to get this fact across here. But we did it, and in the end, I think those episodes turned out well, and certainly had a lot of impact. But I know people have hated it and people have loved it, but at least it's got people talking.
It got people talking. I mean, personally, I
We
love that script you
yeah.
guys went was fabulous. I love how you conveyed a lot of emotions without telling us all the time, like of
Oh,
course the basics show don't tell, but you really take a lot of nuance and complexities with your writing. So yeah, it's great work.
that's lovely of you to say. That's what we hope, and that's one of the
Yeah.
things that people who don't watch soap don't believe exists. I think they just think, oh, we just trot it out, but we care so much. We
Mhm.
really do sweat over those lines.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love the Becky storyline. I'm not gonna say I love Becky. Watch that. That's gonna get turned on me. Shanika's gonna make a clip of that, and I'm gonna get hate online. But no, I love the Becky storyline because I am such a. I don't want to say I'm a detective, but I'm like very into like Criminal Minds, cop shows, and I love
Yeah,
trying to pick out what is the truth with Becky and what is the lie.
great.
Hmm.
Because like
That's
from
what
to
we hoped. Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
like from today's episode, she's taking Betsy on a shopping spree, and she's got money, but Lisa said in the past she's not been good with money.
yeah.
Where is it coming from? And it's just the also me and Shanika have went back and forth about this. Costello, that is our main, like, we go back and forth. I think that
I
he's
have faith
just
in
as done.
Costello. Okay.
And she's like, nah, he's he's Becky's pawn, and I'm like, no, he's the mastermind behind this.
Well, I think that's the
I
thing.
couldn't
Like,
possibly say.
I guess you can't say.
You'll get
Did we
that
just get a
question
Lisa
answered
line thrown
very
out?
soon. You're going to get that question answered very, very soon.
Yeah, I figure. That's the thing with the writing. Like, it's not all black and white. It's a lot of complexities, and that's what I love.
There are the different reasons why stories are chosen as well, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's for impact. We are also looking to get bums on seats and viewers and
Yeah.
good ratings and a lot of publicity, and
Hmm.
we knew that this was going to do that.
Yeah.
We didn't know. I mean, just going back to Swarla, we did not know that that relationship was going to take off the way it did. We didn't know how it's unbelievably fast, the way certain viewers have absolutely taken them to their hearts and
Yeah.
are defending them to the end. And that,
Mhm.
and clearly that has helped massively as well
Yeah.
in terms of the impact.
We now know that like Mason died basically for nothing. Mason died and Becky wasn't even dead. So, will we get scenes where we get answers about a lot of the things that happened due to Becky's death, such as Mason's death, trying to get evidence against his brothers for the night that, Becky died? Will we get those scenes?
Um, See, I wouldn't make that such a direct connection between Mason's death and Becky's disappearance.
Mhm.
Yeah, there is defo crossover with his horrible, vile brothers, definitely.
Mm,
But I feel like Mason's death was almost more, I was going to say global, that's not the right term, but it's a big thematically bigger really. It was,
yeah.
I think we and the same in the States, massive, massive issue with knife crime and
Hmm.
especially young men.
Yeah.
And we were really passionate about telling that story, that we told it with characters that we understood, who were from a variety of backgrounds, some very secure, some chaotic and lawless like Masons.
Hmm.
And again, in the story room, we had massive arguments because, they cast Luca to play Mason. What an amazing young actor.
Oh,
Just
he's so good.
absolutely fantastic. So much nuance, so much empathy for the character. He could not be more different in real life to that character. He's from a really well brought up family. He's so polite. He's just absolutely gorgeous. But he really understood where that character was coming from. And I think we wanted at the time to tell just a big, impactful, socially relevant story that said to our viewers who might not have much connection with young teenage lads, they're not all gangsters and criminals, and some of them are doing this out of fear, and that it's a kind of terrible snowballing effect, to use that term again, that people are afraid for their own safety and so they carry a knife, and then that knife is what gets used against them. So I think there has been a crossover between those two stories, but it's almost been a kind of useful piggybacking. So we were telling the Mason story anyway, and then, oh, hang on, this is quite useful because we've got these bad lads that can cross over into that story as well. But yeah, I don't think we set out to tell the Mason story with that in mind, but it was just a happy accident, really.
Yeah, because
Does that make sense, Amelia? Does that like
yes,
answer?
yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's much bigger
Because
than
yeah,
Swarla or Lisa or anything like
yeah,
that. It was definitely a story to tell. Yeah.
yeah,
because I think a lot of viewers are wanting it to click for Betsy that Becky never she didn't actually die, so this evidence that Mason was going after that then spiraled into his brothers using the knife on him. It's I think they're just wanting that to click for Betsy. Been like Mason died whenever there shouldn't have been anything that shouldn't have happened. I think viewers
yeah,
are definitely wanting that scene of that clicking for Betsy.
yeah,
Yeah. But I think that's the thing though. I think a lot of viewers, well, I would hope a lot of viewers can see that it's a bit bigger than that. Like the
Mm-hmm.
story being told was, knife crime, and no, in US
Yeah.
it's gun crime, but
yeah,
yeah, I think it's much bigger than,
yeah.
individual
But I
things.
do think it's so exciting how invested the viewers are, that and you guys, that you will sit there and think, but that could lead to that, that could lead to that, that connect to that. It's because that's very much what we do in the story room. And to think that all these hive minds are out there working on this, sometimes it's a bit humbling because you think, actually, that what you've just suggested there isn't as good as what we've come up with in the room, or
The
occasionally
theories
someone
that
will
are
say,
going around online are absolutely bizarre, but I'm like, okay, it could work.
yeah, you're like, I'm here for them.
I'm here for the chaos. I'm not here for the pain that it will cause, but I'm here for the chaos. I am a chaos gremlin, so I'm here for it. Shanika?
Yeah, actually, I do have a question kind of piggybacking on pitching. Was there ever a pitch that you really fought for? Like, hey, like I need this to happen, even though, it was a bit of a pushback.
um, there's a pitch that I worked on that I tried for three different characters before it eventually landed. I don't know whether that
Hmm.
fits the bill. And it's probably way before your time of watching the show, but it was when Tyrone was with Kirsty and we played a female on male domestic violence story. And I'd wanted to tell that story for a very long time under different producers, actually. I first pitched it when Phil Collinson, the brilliant Phil Collinson, was producer, and I wanted to do it with Lloyd because I love the character of Lloyd. I love Craig Charles. I thought he gave us the most amazing, fresh, laid back, brilliant performance. And he was so likable. And to me, he seemed the most unlikely candidate to, to be beaten up by a female partner. And yet that made, to me, him the most exciting person to play the story with because the shame, because he was a very much a kind of working class, quite macho man, very traditional in his values. And so the shame that he would feel about that would be huge and that would keep it all a big secret. And Phil just wouldn't have it. He just would not stand for it at all. And so then I let it go, because you have to know when to let these things go and if there's not the support in the room. And also someone as strong-minded as Phil is not going to be won round. The same with Kate Oates. I mean, she's pitched stories to us that we all argued against. Actually, the feeling story, keeping Andy in a cellar, was Kate's story, and we all argued against it, but we did it anyway because she was determined it was going to go through, and actually we got great drama out of it. But so you have to know when to walk away and leave something. But then occasionally, months or years down the line, you might be looking for something for a particular character. So then I said, could we do it for Chesney? I don't think he was with Gemma at the time. I can't even remember who he was with. But anyway, that didn't go. And then eventually the time was right, and we thought, well, we'll do it with Tyrone. And again in the room, we angsted about that because his partner was a black woman, and you're saying, oh, is this going to be really bad in terms of, the portrayal of her as a violent black woman on screen? Is that tapping into too many stereotypes? But then, given the background of her character, as having worked in the police and all that sort of stuff, we just thought it worked. And also Natalie was such a good actor, and actually we ended up getting brilliant stuff out of them. So it was worth it. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and you have to just look back and think, actually, it wasn't the right story for the time, or it wasn't a very good story, or what as often happens, Emmerdale are doing it or have done it, or EastEnders are doing it or have done it. So that's always a big issue when we're pitching stuff.
Do you guys get notes if a pitch doesn't go through, like, hey, next time maybe we can go this way, that way, or not at
We
all?
don't.
Oh,
There's not that kind of stroking of egos. It's a very robust environment, and it's great. I mean, we have a rule: what's said in the room stays in the room. If someone, destroys your pitch or unpicks your pitch, you got to accept it. You can't take that away and sulk. And I think it's a difficult thing for people to get used to when they start the job. That whole thing of having to defend your stories or explain to somebody else why you don't agree with their pitch, but do it as constructively as possible. Don't be destructive. Don't attack people's character or attack people's ideas. It's got to be done respectfully. Um, but oh, Shanika, sorry, I've forgotten where I was going with that because I was just rambling so much. Sorry.
that's all right. I was just asking about
Oh, you were
notes. Your
asking
notes.
about
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the we joke about it sometimes, but the how you know that they're happy with what you're doing is you haven't been sacked. So, if you're doing an edit, the editors will say, "Oh, we like this line," and that's great, and you can take that and nurse it and be happy. But equally, I'm quite suspicious, if you get like a new script editor comes in and they think they've got to be a bit fawning and all of that. I'm a bit suspicious of all of that because that whole thing of like praise makes you weak. You don't want to believe too much of that, I think. But it is nice when you get a note from the producer saying, "Oh, I really like this line," or this scene made me cry, or something. That's brilliant. But you can't rely on that because it doesn't get doled out very often.
Will we get to see scenes of Carla and Eva and Susie now?
I think we will. I can't see any reason why we don't. I haven't written any of them. I have seen the young actor playing Susie, and she is like fantastic.
I
She
keep
is
hearing everyone saying she's
fantastic.
great. Yeah.
And not in that kind of stage school kind of way. She's just
Mhm.
very natural, very northern, hilarious, and I know we're going to love writing for her because obviously we had to write for the family way before even we knew who was casting those roles.
Mhm.
And so we're getting told the character notes for Susie. Yeah, she is quite precocious, and because she's grown up around a lot of adults, and she's got strong opinions, and also she's very much a mother's daughter. So we've borrowed quite a bit of that, and also Kath Tilsley from her musical theatre background. So we're thinking, well, we're going to use all of this. It's going to be great. But also she's a younger sister with these older brothers. And we just thought, oh, she's going to be the boss in that house. She's going to
Mhm.
boss those boys around and have them all wrapped around her little finger.
I
And
love that.
it was great to write that, but then you don't know if you're going to get that in the performance.
Mhm.
But from what we've seen, we are going to get that and some because she's
Mhm.
just fantastic.
Someone asks, without
That
spoilers,
is.
can we expect, I'm assuming the Becky storyline to be wrapped up by the end of 2025. This is very spoiler territory, so I don't know if you can. Mhm.
So we've got, we've still got a lot of material to mine with those.
Yeah.
So it won't be over by the end of 2025.
Hmm.
That's all
Well,
I
yeah, that's
really
a,
want to say because I don't
yeah,
want to spoil it too much. But
absolutely.
I think it might have been one of those stories that in Pitched in the Room, you would think, okay, we'll get a few weeks worth out of that,
Hmm.
and then she's arrested, or then she runs away again, or
Hmm.
whatever. And sometimes you don't know until you're in the room how much story it's going to generate, and it has ended up generating a lot of story. And I would acknowledge there's had to be a suspension of disbelief in some of it.
Yeah.
The ease with which she moves about on the street, lets
Hmm.
herself in and out of houses and stuff. Even I've been there going, oh.
Yeah.
But sometimes you make those sacrifices in order to have the
The
excitement
story.
and the
Yeah.
frisson of the other elements of the
Hmm.
story. Um, Let me think. So, and in terms of how long a story, you never really know how long a story's going to last. I mean, sometimes there'll be extraneous issues or pressures. For instance, we brought in the Michaelis family, Mick and Lou, very explosive, hit the ground running. I know the viewers hated them, but they brought a lot of drama with them, and they've left us a great legacy with Brody. And it's not the end of their family. We are gonna hear from them again. But our hands were tied with Mick, who I thought was a really, really good actor because he had another job to go to. He had some theatre work to go to, unfortunately for us. So we knew there was a ticking clock, and at this point we were going to have to release the actor. So, and sometimes that's really helpful because you know that you're going to have to crank up the pace of a story, and it's gonna end there, and it's very helpful to know that you've got something to work towards. Personally, I was also gutted because I thought he was such a good actor, and I
Fantastic.
was amazed as well because I then met him in the bar where they were having his leaving do, and he is not only nothing like his character, but he's a southerner. He's not even northern, and
He's not
sometimes
a northerner.
he's not northern, and sometimes you can really tell when they're putting on a northern accent because it's not quite right. I
Oh,
was
wow.
amazed. So, and he's off doing a theatre tour at the moment with a
Mhm.
very, very good theatre company, and he's
Mhm.
very much in demand, obviously, because he's so
Yeah.
good.
He's fantastic. He's brought, kind of hate to say this, but he kind of brought a way to humanize Mick, and it's extraordinary. He's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. because the character was a monster, wasn't he?
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
yet could be so charming. I loved the way we brought them in and had him being Jesse's mate and look, I'm going to give you this telly and I'll look after your kids and all of that. And then there was that other side to him. And it was one of those stories where you felt, oh, that could happen to me. And what would I do in those circumstances? It was very rooted in real life. And I did really, that element of it, I really liked.
Very similar to Theo, with his character, and really, I'm excited to see what's going to happen, but I'm very nervous, with Theo and Todd's situation. So, was there any concern that Becky being alive might feel like a betrayal of the fans' investment in Lisa and Betsy's grief in Carla's relationship? And if so, how did you all mitigate that?
I would say yes, there was a real concern about that.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about it, the swarla phenomenon wasn't quite as big a thing, because we talk about these stories sometimes 5, 6 months in advance. Um, so we weren't aware quite of how much of impact, but just for ourselves, putting
Yeah.
ourselves in the viewer's shoes, with Carla being an absolute, one of the crown jewels of our cast,
Yeah.
and people do care so much about her, and just about the kind of truth and integrity of the story. Yeah, we really, really did angst about it, whether people would feel that it was a cynical stunt
Mm.
to simply to threaten what was a very solid and loved
Mm.
relationship on the street in that community and amongst the viewers. And we talked about it a lot, and I think we just decided that the only way to do it was to, while we accepted that it was a very bold move, we tried to preserve the victims in the story, if you like. I still believe to this day Lisa is a good cop, and she genuinely did not know that she was married to someone who might play a bit more fast and loose with the rules, or would ever betray her to the extent that she did by allowing her to go through those years of grief. Also, that it happened during COVID, so things that we've talked about on screen, the funeral when there's hardly anybody allowed to go and all of that, it was such a traumatic thing. So we had to make sure. I think if we'd have hinted that there'd be any kind of collusion in this, I would have felt like walking out of the show, never mind. And I certainly think that the viewers would have just switched off. And any of the viewers that care, care about Lisa or Betsy, or Carla would have been really furious.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job with this and showing like the different shades of grief still, because it never stops. I mean, yes, Becky is alive, but that grief is still very much there and very much raw for Lisa
Yeah.
and Betsy. So I think I'm excited to see what happens next and see the incredible acting from Amy Cudden and Vicky Myers and Ally King. So really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested because Amy's, I haven't met Amy yet, but her performance is not what I was expecting. And I
Oh,
think it's been really interesting choice because I think
mm,
I thought she was going to come in as a bigger, slightly more swaggering figure, maybe a bit more
mm,
like Carla, really,
mm.
very confident at home with the world. And she's actually playing it as a much more rooted character.
Yes.
But then we're getting flashes of this other almost wild, reckless side to her.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's so well disguised. So I'm really interested in watching her portrayal.
Does that affect, I'm assuming it would, but does that affect the way you write her moving forward?
It
I would
it
assume
it
so.
will do now that we've seen
Yeah.
her and seen what her before. You are always sort of tweaking slightly, and that's why it's so helpful. like it's going to be so helpful for us when the Driscolls are finally on screen and we can
Yes.
see what the interaction between those. We will be writing those, even if
Hmm.
it's only a slight difference, or you can see, oh, these have got an alliance. Oh, these two don't get on so well, or oh,
Yeah.
he's cheeky to her, he's not respectful to her. It's
Mm.
really useful to see the way they interact.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, it's massively helpful to us.
I'm very excited to see what goes down with these multiple storylines as well as the Emmerdale and Coronation Street crossover. I have no idea. We have a lot of theories, but I have no idea what's going on. But I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Well, you need to get Owen
I loved. Oh,
once the
he's
crossover's been
fantastic.
on, or in the build up to the crossover.
Yeah.
He is such a great writer and really, really interesting
Hmm.
person. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, every time I watch you or Owen's work on screen, I have this little notebook. I'm just taking notes and everything about, oh, that was great. That they did great with that. So so excited. So excited. Um, thank you. I'm just gonna sign out. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I just want to say thank you so much
Oh
for
no, it
being
was an
here.
absolute pleasure, and
Yeah.
I'm so gutted we lost Amy. We
I
lost
know.
Amelia.
Amelia, yeah.
Oh, just keep doing it, and I have to start backtracking and listening to all the episodes now. Be
Yeah.
finding stuff out about Coronation Street that I didn't know actually.
Thank you. Oh, I'm not to be looking, but is that the picture of the rose in the back? Oh, that's
It
awesome.
is. It's actually it's a limited edition print by an artist, a 60s artist called Peter Blake.
Mm,
I will send you a photo of it because it's got quite an interesting story. When the
yeah.
show was 30 years old, I think,
Mm,
the then producer Carolyn Reynolds commissioned Peter Blake to do. So his big, I mean, he's a hugely famous artist, but he did the front cover of the Beatles' Sergeant Pepper album. So one of his techniques was to do this collage art with all these different characters. So they commissioned him to do one for Corrie's 30th anniversary, and I think only 250 copies exist. And I managed to wangle one. So I've got it in my office. That's one of the things I would save in the fire. And years later, Peter Blake was given a talk locally at some festival thing, and I took it with me and got him to sign the back of it. So
oh,
he
that's
was a bit
awesome.
wary of because I think he thought, oh, this is going to instantly go on eBay, but there is no way it's going on
Oh,
eBay.
yeah, you're keeping
So
that for
I'm very
good.
proud
Yeah,
of it. I'll send you a photo of it anyway. So
that'd be
I can't
great.
believe you spotted that.
Oh, I
Can't
spot
believe you
anything else,
laughed.
Corey. Yeah, of course. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know what? We didn't even talk about the your fantastic work on the live episode, but maybe one day you can come back and we can talk all about it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a real joy to do actually. And that
yeah.
was Phil Collinson at his finest. And you can see,
Mm,
he's gone on to do many, many other brilliant shows, but his work on Doctor Who,
yes.
that
Yes.
ambition to never mind the budget, let's just make this look the very best that it can, and to
Mm,
be able to bring together people who have got the same kind of enthusiasm and
mm,
push. Yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah, happy to. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Thank you so much again. This is Side Street, and you all have been fabulous. Thank you so much, Jan, for joining us. We
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it. And I know our listeners will be appreciative as well.
Oh, it's great to meet you
Thank
guys.
you.